At a smoky back cafe near Bastille, Dorian sat across from Theodore, both mid-conversation with a sleek man in a gray turtleneck, a former forensic accountant turned informant. "Hotel management's books don't match," the man whispered. "Money disappears before it arrives. There's shell companies involved. Someone's laundering through rooms. Guests are handpicked, not just rich but detached. Influencers, solo travelers. People who won't be believed," Dorian said. The man nodded. "And the passport thefts? That's leverage. For recruitment or ransom, depending on how far they want to push it." Dorian leaned back, jaw tight. "This is bigger than theft. Much bigger." "It's been nearly impossible," Theodore admitted, voice low and honest, "to get to the root of what's happening inside that place. We've tried for years. Surveillance, interviews, anonymous tips. But everything slipped through our fingers like smoke." He glanced down at the stack of documents between them. "The corruption runs too deep. People vanish. Evidence disappears. Promotions get handed out to those who look away." Dorian didn't speak, but his eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Theodore gave a short laugh, one that carried more weariness than humor. "They would never have let me bring in someone like you. A private investigator for the ultra-wealthy? The brass would have called it a waste of resources. Even if you had solved every case on their desks." He looked up, eyes suddenly earnest. "But then you showed up. For your goddaughter. And in doing so, you've done what we couldn't." Dorian gave a small shrug, ever modest behind his cool demeanor. "I'm just here for the truth." "No," Theodore said, shaking his head. "You're here because someone up there finally decided we deserved a break. The truth is, if you hadn't come, if Vivi hadn't insisted on finding those earrings, none of this would have cracked open." He extended a hand, weathered and sincere. "Merci, Fox. Truly, you might have just saved more than a stolen necklace. You may have saved lives." Dorian took the handshake firmly, but offered only a small nod in return. There was no room for triumph yet, not until the man behind the curtain was revealed. But in that moment, under the weight of impossible odds and long-awaited breakthroughs, there was something almost divine in how it had all begun, with a missing pair of earrings and a girl who refused to let them go. As they parted ways, Dorian turned to Theodore. "They messed with the wrong girl. Vivi isn't just some spoiled tourist. She's connected and protected. And I'm going to make sure they know that." The room was silent, but for the ticking of an antique clock and the soft hum of surveillance monitors stacked against one wall. A tall man in a tailored charcoal suit stood with his back to the screen, gazing out a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Paris. His reflection stared back at him, sharp cheekbones, silver-streaked hair, and eyes that saw everything and trusted no one. A woman entered, dressed in a crisp white blouse, holding a tablet. "Sir, the girls are still in Paris, even they have their passports." He didn't turn. "Where?" "Not at the hotel. Their location's been obscured. But we tracked a familiar ID." The influencer posted a photo, discreet, but the window view matches Montmartre. She turned the screen to show a filtered sunset with Vivian's caption. "Some days, chaos smells like lavender and home. Hashtag unexpected Paris, hashtag girls on a mission." He slowly faced her. "So they stay to play the game, huh?" "There is an issue, sir," she continued inconceivably. "Possibly law enforcement. We also traced movement on one of our plants, the bellhop who went rogue. The police got to him." His jaw tensed. He talked. She hesitated. Enough to make people ask questions. Not names, but implications. That there's no ghost thief. That the disappearances are organized. He walked to the screen wall, tapped a few keys. Up came camera feeds from the hotel, corridors, stairwells, storage rooms. One camera was blacked out. He stared at it. "This is your fault, you let that rogue did the task," he said flatly. "The plan was to keep pressure them. Delay a passport and trigger them," she replied. He turned fully now, face calm but lethal. "Fine. If they want to play detective, if they're still in the city, we escalate." He smirked. "Someone still gets punishment. Silence the manager of Minuet. Everyone has a price. Or a pressure point. Let's see if theirs is loyalty." He pressed a red button. A secondary screen lit up with dossiers. "Let's see what happens when we move forward the next shipment." As the pieces of the mystery finally began to fit together, the thrill of discovery gave way to a quieter weight. The two girls sat cross-legged on the plush rug in Luke's guest room, the scent of jasmine tea curling in the air, their voices low with everything unsaid. Vivi stared into her teacup, uncharacteristically quiet. The shimmer in her eyes wasn't from the chandelier. "I'm really sorry, you know," she said softly, her voice breaking the silence. "Because of me, the earrings, the hotel, all of it, we're stuck in this weird, dangerous mess. This was supposed to be a holiday. And now you had to give up so much." June leaned back against the couch, letting out a breathy chuckle. "Vivi, we've been to every cliché landmark in Paris and taken about 1,000 pictures each. I think we've hit the full tourist checklist." And she continued, "Honestly, I should be thanking you." Vivi blinked. "Me?" June nodded. "This trip, this case, it's the closest I've ever come to the real thing. No more podcasts or books or classroom hypotheticals. This was actual detective work. And I got to do it with my best friend. You didn't ruin anything. You made it unforgettable. And you know I had a crush on your uncle, so it's perfect." Turning back to Vivi with a half-smile. Vivian laughed, too suddenly, almost desperately. "God, you have Luke now. And really, Vivi, because your earrings aren't just earrings and she looked at Vivi, are so close to connecting all the dots, my thesis professor would weep." June snorted, then caught herself, eyes glinting behind her glasses. "I am adding this to my academic portfolio. The Parisian jewelry heist disguised as a ghost haunting, a field case study by June Abbott." And she nudged Vivi gently. "And we're not stuck. I chose to stay. For you." Vivi swallowed hard, the corners of her lips twitching into a small, grateful smile. She looked at her best friend beside her, heart tight with emotion. Maybe they didn't have the picture-perfect Paris trip she had imagined, but somehow this, the loyalty, the chaos, the wild twists, felt even more real. And far more beautiful. There was a beat. The laughter quieted. Vivian's voice softened. "My dad," he called. "But he didn't ask about the earrings. Just said he'd buy me new ones." Her eyes shimmered in the lamplight. They were Mom's. The only thing I had of her that felt personal. She looked at her best friend. "Why didn't he say her name? Why does it feel like loving me is just obligation?" June crossed the room and sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "You're not an obligation, Vivi. You're extraordinary. And maybe your dad just doesn't know how to show it. But I do." She added, "We'll find the earrings. And when we get home, we'll help you find her. Whatever it takes." Vivian looked at June, tears blinked away with a smile. "Deal." Vivian lay back inside. "If this is our last night in Paris, let's remember this. Not just the earrings or the ghosts or the danger, but this, us in this room, making something beautiful out of something terrifying." They nodded. A pact. A promise. Sisters in all but blood. From downstairs, Luke called up softly. "Girls? We need to go over the final plan before lights out." June stood first, calm and determined. "Let's catch a ghost, shall we? And wreck a criminal empire." Vivian tossed her hair. "And let's do it in style." The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from a green-shaded desk lamp and the glow of a Paris map spread out on the oak table. Dorian leaned over it, sleeves rolled, jaw tight. Luke stood at the window, scanning the empty street beyond the iron gate, eyes sharp. The girls filed in, a mixture of nerves and anticipation trailing them like shadows. June went straight for the notes scattered on the desk, her mind already ticking. She lingered near Luke, who offered her a reassuring nod. Vivian, perfectly put together even in crisis mode, stood arms crossed, a silk scarf tied like a ribbon in her hair, Fashion Detective edition. Dorian didn't look up right away. He tapped the map. So they store all the stolen things at 6th floor, and they shift to all places. Luke closed the curtain. The guy we caught last night admitted the truth. He wasn't acting under orders. He saw a chance and took it. It compromised a much bigger operation we're now on the edge of exposing. June asked, "So there is someone behind it?" Dorian met her eyes. "There's someone behind everything in this mess. And they're angry. Our informant said even the hotel staff don't know who's in charge. Orders come down, valuables disappear, no names exchanged. It's professional, military clean, which makes their next move unpredictable. However, if we can prove with stolen things, it might shift to some degree." Vivian leaned forward. "Then we made it personal. Me, my social media, my name. They chose me for a reason, young, rich, stupid." "You forgot spoiled," Luke teased gently. Vivian flicked her scarf. "Not helping, Mr. Moreau." They smiled, the tension melting for just a moment. Luke handed out earpieces. "Tomorrow night we go back. Not to stay, just to draw them out." Dorian added, "We've requested a discreet backup team to stand by, but no guarantees they'll show in time. The police captain's still wary. We may be on our own. And we'll act like everything's fine," June said. "Business as usual. One last night in the haunted hotel." Vivi swallowed. "And we wait for them to come." Luke nodded. "Whoever's behind this tried to get your passports. It wasn't about the jewelry they want from you guys now. They wanted leverage. To make a statement. To scare us into silence," June said. "They picked the wrong girls," Vivian muttered. Dorian smiled faintly. "Indeed." He looked at each of them in turn. "If at any moment you feel unsafe, we stop. No heroics. Your families want you home. I gave my word I'd get you there." Vivian hesitated. "My dad called." Dorian stilled. "He said he'd make new earrings. Didn't mention Mom. But I didn't ask. I just said you'd find them. That was enough for him." Dorian looked down, his voice soft. "You were always her sparkle, Vivian. Whatever happened, she loved you. Don't ever think otherwise." She blinked. "You said you'd help me find her. And I will." A heavy silence followed. June finally broke it. "So what time are we ghost hunting?" Luke grinned. "Midnight. Classic." Dorian folded the map. "Let's get some rest. Tomorrow we pull off the greatest trap Paris has ever seen." Luke raised his tea. "To truth." June added, "To justice." Vivian held out her perfume bottle like a champagne glass. "And to style." They tapped their mock glasses together, and the night held its breath.